Jones with CBN Business News. Yesterday, the world's leading pharmaceutical company, Magnum Pharma, announced it had discontinued research on Parkamine, its experimental drug for treating Parkinson's disease. It's a stunning development that's likely to damage the company's prospects for decades to come. In a statement, the company said it would immediately halt all clinical trials of the drug. The decision was based on interim results of a 15,000 patient trial. The company stressed that this wasn't based on safety issues. Magnum CEO Jonathan Brown originally heralded Parkamine as a revolutionary new treatment for Parkinson's disease. But new data indicates that the drug doesn't reach sufficient quantities in patients' brains. Since the announcement, Magnum Pharma shares have fallen almost 11%, wiping 23 billion euros off its market value. Analysts expect that Magnum will have to close its research facility at Bradford with a loss of 2,700 jobs. Despite an annual research budget of 8 billion euros, Magnum has had difficulty bringing important new drugs to market. In its statement, the company stressed that it's still committed to developing new drugs for patients with neurological diseases, but will work more closely with biotech companies with promising candidate drugs.
Hi Claire, did you see CBN News this morning?
I'm afraid not. Why?
Magnum Pharma issued a statement about the development of Parkamine.
Is that the experimental drug for treating Parkinson's disease?
That's the one.
But it's in phase 3 trial, right?
Well, it was.
What do you mean?
Well, according to CBN News, Magnum Pharma abruptly terminated its development.
But they invested big bucks on that drug. The phase 3 study was a huge international multi-center trial with hospitals in the US, Europe and Asia. They spent a lot of time recruiting all the patients they needed for that study. Why did they stop? I suspect there was safety issues or something.
No, nothing like that. It appears the drug doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier in the right quantities.
You're kidding.
No, I'm deadly serious.
But why did they start such a huge phase 3 trial if they weren't even sure the drug reached the brain?
I don't know, but what I do know is that their current blockbuster drug dopinocin will soon be off patent.
I understand it adds pressure, but still, you would think the company would check whether the drug reaches the site of action before they start phase 3.
Well, I guess they had some data, possibly from animal studies, that the drug passed the blood-brain barrier. And to save time and money, they went into phase 3 too soon.
Never rely too much on animal data. I remember an oncologist's quote about animal models. If you have cancer and you're a mouse, there's a lot we can do for you.
Well, there's a lot we can still do for ITL 1437. Let's discuss the data we received yesterday from our CRO. As far as I can see, the CRO did a good job. The study was done according to the clinical protocol. There's some minor adverse events, nothing serious though. All healthy volunteers completed the study as described.
I agree. The study is a success, technically speaking, that is. I was really curious to see the PET data. But look at these figures, Peter. And look at these figures, Peter. Our compound is doing what we were hoping. It passes the blood-brain barrier just fine.
So no Magnum Pharma issue here. Thank God.
But look, there's more. The receptor occupancy and the dose correlate well with the animal data. Now that we know the associated blood concentrations, we can start building a PK/PD model that will help us design the next clinical studies.
I agree. Let's tell Frank the good news.
Look at these figures, Peter. Our compound is not doing what we were hoping. It doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier sufficiently.
You're right, even at the highest dose tested, hardly any ITL 1437 seems to reach the subject's brains. Can we increase the dose?
I'm afraid not, Peter. The therapeutic window is way too narrow to allow us to test a higher dose. The side effects that were observed after the highest dose in this study were not severe, but still, they completely rule out the next dose step. Do we have any other options? Maybe we could ask our chemists to try to increase the lipid solubility of ITL 1437? Or can we maybe change the formulation?
We did all these things in the early phases of development. The current formulation is the best we can make. If we could change anything now, and I really mean anything, we'd have to start all over with animal studies. That's something the company can't afford. At this stage, there aren't very many options left. The simplest one is increasing the dose.
But that's a no-go. We can't increase the dose. The risks for the patients are too high. We'll definitely run into some serious side effects, and we don't have the adequate tools to control it, so...
In that case, I'm afraid it's game over for this compound.
And all this work that the company has done is wasted. We just burnt all the money spent in discovery and development.
Yes, that's life at a biotech company.
At university, I read a lot about the costs of drug development and the many failures, but experiencing it for myself is really something else.
I'm so glad we decided to include the pet sub-study. The Magnum Pharma news won't be our story. Let's send Frank an email with our conclusions. Fortunately, we have very many more interesting compounds to work on.